This year, one of the things that you're going to be required to do is to fill in math notes. And what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to fill in their closed notes. So you have to fill in like a word or an example, maybe a definition, maybe a couple notes about the topic to help you in what we're doing this year in math, as well as with some of the review preview problems. The first one is a review. It's a review of fraction, decimals, and percent. So the first part of this is, so you should have your math notes out in front of you so you can fill them in as we go, is the representation of a portion web. So it's this diagram that's over here. It is just a way to put all the different representations of a number in one place. So we have a fraction, a decimal, a percent, words or pictures, all in one spot. So it's a diagram at right illustrates that fractions, decimals, and percents are different ways to represent a portion of a number. Portions can also be represented in words such as 4/5 or 12/15, or with diagrams. The examples below will show you how to convert one form to another. So again, remember, as you're doing this, make sure you fill in the examples or the note about each topic. You can pause the video at any time if you need more time to write it down. So the first one we're going to talk about is how to change a decimal to a percent. So you move the decimal point 2 spaces to the right, or you can multiply it by 100. So for example, if I wanted to change the decimal 0.75 or 75 hundredths to a percent, we would take this decimal point, move it over 1 space, 2 spaces to the right, it would be equal to 75%. Okay, the next one is to take a percent and change it to a decimal. So going the other way. So it's actually just the opposite rule. We move the decimal point 2 spaces to the left, or we can divide it by 100. So if we had the percent, say we had 125%, and we wanted to change that into a decimal, remember the decimal point always ends up at the end right here, we would go over 1, 2 spaces, so our answer would be 1.25, or 1 and 25 hundredths. Okay, so it's two opposites, going either from a decimal to a percent or a percent to a decimal. The next one is changing a fraction to a percent. So this is a two-step process. The first thing you're going to do is divide the numerator by the denominator. Then you're going to move the decimal 2 spaces to the right or multiply by 100. So first you're changing the fraction into a decimal, and then you're changing the decimal into a percent. So say, for example, we had the fraction 3/5. If I were to divide 3 by 5, I would get 0.6 or 0.60. And then I want to move the decimal 2 spaces to the right to change it into a percent. So I go over 1, up, there's not another number there, so I still move over, and I add a 0, so it's going to be 60%. Okay, so just to recap, we take the fraction, do numerator divided by denominator, got a decimal, moved it over 2 spaces, got the percent. The next one is changing a percent to a fraction. So if we want to change a percent to a fraction, all percents are out of 100. That's what the word cent means. So it's per 100. So you take the percent, put it over 100, and then you simplify. So you put the percent over 100, and then simplify the fraction. So if we wanted to change percent, 53% into a fraction, we would make 53 over 100. 53 is actually a prime number, so we can't simplify it, so that would actually be the answer. But if we could simplify the fraction, then we would make it smaller. The next one is to change a terminating decimal, so a decimal that ends into a fraction, because there's a different process for if it's repeating, is we put the percent over the place value of the last digit in the decimal, and then we make sure to simplify. So say, for example, our decimal 0.20, let's say 22. So we're looking at the decimal place that's right here. So if you remember, this is the tenths place, this is the hundredths place. So we're going to put the decimal over 100 because it's in the hundredths place. So we would do 22 over 100, which again, you could read it out loud. If you remember how to read the number, this would be named 22 hundredths or 22 hundredths. They both, fractions and decimals, actually the same name. And then we could actually simplify this. We can divide both the top and the bottom by 2 and reduce this to 11 over 50. And the very last conversion we're going to talk about is changing a fraction to a decimal. This you actually already did when we changed a fraction to a percent. It's the first step. So all you do is divide the numerator by the denominator. So say we wanted to change 4/5. We would do 4 divided by 5. We put it in a calculator. We could use long division. Either way is fine, and we would get 0.8. So 4/5 is equal to 8 tenths, or 0.8.